Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The truth is obvious to all of us. It's obvious to us on the right, in the middle, and on the left. And that truth is that Donald Trump clearly cannot get a fair trial in New York. Right-wingers know this, and they of course rightfully complain about it. But trust me when I tell you left-wingers know it. The only thing is, they're celebrating it. They obviously have no interest in Donald Trump getting a fair trial. They want Trump gone at any and all cost. That's it. There's no other priority for them. And so what's the left gonna do? Well, they're gonna pretend as if the bias doesn't exist. They're gonna pretend as if New York City's a fair city. In other words, they're going to lie. But the truth is just so blatantly obvious. And now we're getting more evidence supporting this truth, this obvious truth. I want to really delve into the left-wing bias in New York City and how it is clearly affecting the juror selection process in this extremely high-profile case. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so we've heard from some of the top legal minds how clearly it's obvious that you can't get a fair trial in New York City if you're someone like President Trump. We've heard previously from DC Judge Tom Hogan.
What are our juries going to do? There have been great concerns with the jury because the defendants all claim the juries in D.C. voted 99% for President Biden, 95% actually for President Biden, the citizens of D.C., and they think they can't get a fair trial. We have not had a problem with that until very recently. In the last 6 months to a year, we've found it's much harder to get juries. There's more publicity, more things that we developed, and the political session is now in season, and they are now getting more difficult to be able to find a qualified jury that had not had prejudice against any of these defendants.
And now constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley has also chimed in as well.
In this case, you're taking this misdemeanor, reviving it because it was dead, suggesting a crime that doesn't exist, and then hitting Trump with dozens of counts. Most citizens, at least outside New York, see that for what it is. It's the weaponization of the criminal justice system. What is troubling is that in a couple of past Trump cases, they found out after the conviction or after the trial that jurors had lied about their past political involvements. The judges refused to toss out the verdict.
The truth is obvious. Donald Trump cannot get a fair trial in Manhattan, and that is becoming increasingly clear as we get more information here. There is no chance at a fair trial. Just in this morning, we're learning that this was one of the prospective jurors who was assured by the judge that she would be able to sit during the trial. The only issue was she was dismissed due to a scheduling conflict. Not due to political bias that would render it impossible for her to be a fair juror. No, because her schedule didn't match.
Can you share your opinion of the former president and why you felt that you could be unbiased?
I'm not a fan. During COVID-19, I lived with someone who was immunocompromised, and I think his handling of COVID-19 was abysmal. I have a sister who is adopted from China, and the comments he made about China when he was running for president made her very anxious and therefore made me angry. There are policies he has supported that regard women and reproductive health that I do not agree with. And I think all of that needs to be addressed.
That was an individual who the judge was okay with putting on the jury. Are we watching the same thing here? Of course we are. Leftists know, Democrats know, but they're simply chomping at the bit that 12 of these individuals get selected and not one person who could be possibly sympathetic to the president. And that is becoming increasingly clear. It's a complete kangaroo court. Jesse Waters on Fox News had a great piece actually going into some more detail about some of the information coming out relating to these possible or potential jurors.
Never met anybody who watches both Fox and MSNBC, but okay. That guy's your jury foreman. Juror number 2, a nurse from the Upper East Side with a master's degree. She's not married, has no kids, and lives with her fiance who works in finance. She gets her news from the New York Times, Google, and CNN. Juror number 3 is a young Asian lawyer from Oregon. His corporate law firm features DEI on its homepage. He's single, lives in Chelsea, and was wearing a purple jacket. Okay? He claims he's not super familiar with Trump's other charges. He likes to hike and run and gets his news from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Google. A black woman in her 20s who doesn't follow the news and didn't know Trump was facing charges, anywhere. She gets her news from Google and TikTok. She also listens to Charlemagne the God. Juror number 6 is a woman in her 20s who works for Disney. She's not married, has no kids, and likes to dance. She lives with 3 roommates and gets her news from the New York Times, Google, Facebook, and of course TikTok. Juror number 7 is a middle-aged, balding white guy with a tan. He lives on the Upper East Side, and you guessed it, another lawyer whose firm is big into DEI and ESG. He gets his news from the New York Times, the Journal, the New York Post, the Washington Post, and he listens to NPR.
I'm just going to say it again. I mean, do I need to explain? Do we need to go line by line and explain why this is concerning? Do I need to explain the massive red flags? Of course I don't, because it's completely obvious to all of you. They are trying to stack the jury against the former president, as if the whole situation isn't already stacked against the former president to begin with, considering the individual who brought this case in the first place, Alvin Bragg.
You know, it's interesting about Alvin Bragg, a person who actually campaigned on, I'm going to get Trump, I'm going to get Trump.
Let's talk about what's waiting for the new DA, the docket. We know there's a Trump investigation. I have investigated Trump and his children. I also sued the Trump administration more than 100 times.
I do have a lot of experience with the former president. I led the New York State Attorney General's work and investigation and successful litigation against him and his family.
As if that's not enough conflict of interest, not to mention since embarking in this anti-Trump crusade, Alvin Bragg has fundraised nearly $1 million. You know, Letitia James and Alvin Bragg have made a career off of their Trump indictments. Again, it's painfully obvious to everyone, but of course, if you mention it, or better yet, if Donald Trump mentions it, or signals frustration with the process, well, the media reports it as jury tampering or jury intimidation.
There was some back and forth between the lawyers, and then the judge actually admonished the former president because he was huffing and puffing and gesturing towards the juror. He said the judge said it was completely inappropriate, and he said, I won't tolerate it. I won't have any jurors intimidated in this courtroom. And his lawyer had to go speak to him. So that was like a moment. And the judge found in this case, in this juror, that this juror could continue. And they, wasn't immediately pulled, but
absolutely ludicrous. I won't have this in my courtroom, the judge says. He seems to have an issue with Donald Trump having an issue with this completely unfair, legal, lawfare railroading, but I sympathize more with Donald Trump because I have an issue with a totally biased, partial, anti-Trump jury selection. You know, this whole notion that Donald Trump is threatening people, that he's intimidating people, has been ridiculous from the start. We all remember it all started with the judge's daughter. Trump once again raised very serious concerns and very credible concerns, but what was the media reaction and reporting? Trump is inciting violence, threatening the judge's daughter. That's what Nicole Wallace said, her little hissy fit on air.
So, it's time to do something different. Like, we're not going to have this conversation again. I have come on the air with breaking news about requests for gag orders because of threats for judges and their kids more times than I could count today before I got ready. Donald Trump brazenly and repeatedly attacks not just judges, and I've had the privilege of sitting across not just from you, Judge Ludig, but from Judge Esther Salas, whose son was assassinated by a crazy person.
Complete propaganda. Of course, as we know, the sober reality is that Trump is right. Judge Napolitano on Newsmax, I think, really put it into clear perspective.
When a judge says, don't attack my daughter, the first thing you're thinking of is, why is a judge ruling on an issue involving his own child? That should go to another judge.
Right.
The second thing you think of is, well, why does the defendant want to attack the judge's daughter? It's not to irritate the judge. It's because the daughter is raising money for the Democrats, we all know this, and using exaggerated, one-sided versions of the trial before her father as an instrument with which to raise the money. All legal, but that generates his right to challenge that, to attack it, to call it out.
Yeah.
He should never have been silenced. Now, I have a bias. I'm in favor of the First Amendment. I happen to think that
You're in favor of
Do
the
you
First
believe
Amendment?
that?
Joe
Most-
Biden's president. You can't be in favor of the First Amendment.
But most judges believe that gag orders work.
Right.
Most judges say it insulates jurors and it protects witnesses. There are other ways to insulate jurors and protect witnesses. You do not silence the defendant from articulating political speech, and that's exactly what they're doing to Trump here.
Look,
He's right. The entire process is rigged. The people being selected to be on the jury are MSNBC and CNN viewers, New York Times readers, vehement Trump haters with biased social media history. The judge's daughter is literally fundraising for the Democrats, and at one point had a picture of Donald Trump behind bars as her Twitter profile picture. Not to mention the prosecutor who brought the case is a Soros-funded Democrat who essentially campaigned on going after Donald Trump, just as his counterpart Letitia James did, albeit I'd argue a little bit less flamboyantly. The whole process is completely whack. Everybody can see it. We can all see it left, right, and center. I guess we just have different reactions to it, you know? We are disgusted by it, horrified by the political nature of it all, the clear bias intent, while the left is cheering on and celebrating this horrifying, unprecedented lawfare campaign, which is clearly meant to interfere in the 2024 election on the behalf of dismal Joe Biden. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.